Prince Onoce remained locked in his chambers for days after Olido's disappearance. When King Udoka finally came to inform him of her fate, the news crushed Onoce's spirit. The king told him curtly, "Olido is dead. She has been executed for her disobedience." At first, Onoce refused to believe it. "No, you are lying," he shouted, eyes wild with anguish. But the grave look on his father's face, and the blood-stained scrap of cloth King Udoka showed him, forced Onoce to accept the horrifying truth. In that moment, something inside the prince broke. He fell to his knees, sobbing so fiercely it was as if his soul were shattering. He cried out Olido's name until his voice grew hoarse. "You killed her. You killed my heart along with her," Onoce wailed at his father. King Udoka stood stiffly by, insisting it was for the best, that one day Onoce would understand. But the prince crawled away from him, curling in a corner like a wounded lion licking its wounds. "Leave me," he whispered in a raw voice. "I have nothing to say to you." King Udoka left Onoce's chambers, troubled by his son's devastation, but he held firm that duty must come first. In the weeks that followed, Prince Onoce was a shell of himself. He refused to eat or speak. Trays of food left at his door went cold. Concerned servants sometimes heard him weeping softly in the night. Queen Chica visited once, standing outside his locked door to plead, "My son, please come out. You must go on. Olido is gone, but you are alive. Please, Onoce." Her only answer was silence, punctuated by quiet grief. At last, King Udoka decided that enough time had passed. He would shake his son out of this state by proceeding with a plan he had long intended, securing a royal marriage for Onoce. The alliance with the Northern Kingdom through Princess Urima was too important to delay. One morning, the king entered Onoce's chambers, accompanied by 2 guards and a royal advisor. They found the prince sitting by his window, gazing blankly at the morning sun. His once bright eyes were dull with sorrow, and his clothes hung loosely on him from weeks of barely eating. "My son," King Udoka said as gently as his stern voice could manage, "you cannot continue like this." Onoce did not turn to look at him. "Why not? What reason do I have to live?" "Father, you took the one person I cared for." The king suppressed a flare of irritation. "You have your duty to this kingdom. You have your family. You have your future to consider. A prince does not have the luxury of giving up." Onoce closed his eyes. "My future died with her," he murmured. King Udoka's patience thinned. He signaled the guards to open the windows fully and let sunlight flood the dim room. "Listen to me, Onoce. You will get up, wash, and prepare yourself. In 3 days, you are going to marry Princess Urima of the Nelby Kingdom. The arrangements are already made." Those words finally made Onoce turn his head in disbelief. "You cannot be serious," he croaked. "Not now, not like this." "Yes, now," the king replied, arms folded. "The world does not stop for grief. We have delayed too long already. Princess Urima is arriving tomorrow with her entourage. The wedding will be held as soon as she arrives, and the rites are prepared. That is final." Onoce felt a fresh wave of despair wash over him. How could his father expect him to marry someone when his heart was in ashes? "Father, I beg you," he started, voice shaking. "I cannot do this." Queen Chica stepped out from behind the king. She had followed and been listening at the doorway. "You will do this, Onoce," she said firmly, though her eyes were softer now as she looked at her broken son. "It is for your own good. You will be a king one day and must have a queen of proper standing. Life must go on. This marriage will help you heal, if you let it." Onoce said nothing more. He realized any protest would fall on deaf ears. His parents left, ordering servants to bathe and dress him properly. Numbly, Onoce allowed himself to be prepared like a doll for a wedding he did not want, to a princess he did not love. The very next day, Princess Urima arrived at Uchla's palace with fanfare. She was a graceful young woman adorned in fine silk wrappers and heavy coral bead necklaces befitting a princess. She had a warm smile and luminous dark eyes. When she was presented to Prince Onoce in the Great Hall, she offered a respectful bow and a shy smile, clearly trying to make a good impression. Onoce managed a polite nod, but his eyes did not light up. He greeted her with courtesy, but little enthusiasm. "Welcome, Princess Eurima," he said dully. "I hope your journey was pleasant." "It was, Your Highness," Eurima replied gently. She had heard rumors that the prince had recently suffered some heartbreak, but she did not know details. All she saw was a very handsome, yet very sad, man before her. In her heart, Eurima resolved to be a good wife, and perhaps win his love with time. The wedding was a grand affair by Echla's standards, though the groom wore a forced smile throughout and spoke his vows in a flat tone. Drummers beat the royal drums and flutes sang, as the people of Echla gathered to celebrate. King Udoka and Queen Chica put on bright faces for the public, declaring their joy. Princess Eurima's father, King Ease, sent lavish gifts and his blessings, though he could not attend in person. As tradition dictated, the bride and groom shared a cup of palm wine, and Onoce had to formally present his bride with gifts of cloth and jewels as part of the ceremony. He did all that was required, but anyone close enough could see the distant look in his eyes. When it was done, Prince Onoce and Princess Eurima were pronounced husband and wife. The crowd cheered and ululated, but the prince barely heard. In his mind, he was picturing how this moment might have been if it were Olido by his side instead. The thought was too painful to bear, and so he simply shut his heart down. That night, in their new chamber, Princess Eurima approached her husband slowly. The room was lit with dozens of oil lamps, casting a warm glow on the painted walls. A soft bed awaited them, strewn with flower petals by the maidens to bless their first night. Eurima's hands trembled slightly with nervousness. She had never been with a man before. She sat next to Onoce on the edge of the bed. He was staring at the floor. Summoning her courage, Eurima reached out and gently touched his hand. "My prince," she whispered, "I know you do not smile, but I hope I can make you happy in time." Onoce withdrew his hand slowly, not meeting her hopeful gaze. "You are kind, princess," he said quietly, "but my heart is unwell. I cannot give you what you wish for. I am sorry." Princess Eurima bit her lip, hurt by his words. "At least let us try," she pleaded softly. "We are husband and wife now. Perhaps we can be friends. I will do all I can to be a good wife to you." Onoce looked at her finally, seeing the earnest tears in her eyes. She was trying so hard. He felt a pang of guilt. None of this was her fault. "You have done nothing wrong," he said gently. "Yes, we can try to be friends." But even as he said it, there was no conviction in his voice. Weeks passed, then months. Princess Eurima truly gave her all to win Onoce's affection. She learned what foods he liked and personally cooked spicy fish stew and pounded yam for him, surprising him in his chambers. "I made this for you, my husband," she would say with a hopeful smile. "Thank you," Onoce would respond politely. He would eat a few bites, praise her cooking out of politeness, but he never finished a full meal. Often, as soon as he could, he excused himself to be alone. The food lost its taste in his mouth, for every dish reminded him of how Olido used to bring him roasted plantains, sneaked from the kitchen, as a treat during their secret meetings. Those memories soured any joy he might find in Eurima's thoughtful gestures. Princess Eurima also tried to brighten his days by arranging entertainment. She invited skilled drummers and dancers to the courtyard, hoping the lively music might cheer him. One such day, Onoce stepped out to see the performers leaping and twirling, drums echoing against the palace walls. Eurima approached him eagerly. "Aren't they wonderful? I thought it might lighten your heart." Onoce forced a smile. "It is pleasant," he said quietly. But after only a short while watching, he slipped away, leaving Eurima standing alone among the dancers, her smile fading. Every attempt she made, Onoce met with polite distance. He did not yell at her or mistreat her. He simply kept a wall around his heart and never let her in. At night, he often slept on a mat on the floor, leaving Eurima alone in the large bed. She would cry softly sometimes, feeling unwanted and lonely, a princess married to a man who behaved like a ghost. Their relationship grew strained. Eurima's disappointment began to turn to frustration and anger. One evening, nearly a year into their marriage, Eurima confronted Onoce. He had just returned from a solitary horseback ride through the fields, one of the few activities that gave him a semblance of peace. Eurima met him in their chamber, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "You barely speak to me," she said, voice trembling between anger and sorrow. "I have tried everything to be a good wife to you, yet you act as if I do not exist." Onoce removed his riding cloak, avoiding her eyes. "I am sorry," he said, which had become his refrain. "I do not mean to hurt you. But you are hurting me." Eurima burst out, tears gathering. "Do you know how it feels to be so unwanted? Am I so unworthy of love that you cannot even try? I may not be the woman you wanted, but I am your wife, Onoce." Onoce finally looked at her, seeing her face red and wet with tears. He felt heavy remorse, but also a stab of pain, because he truly did not have love to give. "I do not mean to hurt you," he said softly. "You are right. You are alive, and all I do is mourn. But I also know," he trailed off, "he would never love Eurima, no matter how kind she was. His heart was buried with Olido. Or so he believed. Their marriage limped on, increasingly joyless. Eurima grew cold in return. If being sweet and loving earned her nothing but heartache, then she would harden her heart as well. In public, she still played the gracious princess. But in private, husband and wife lived almost as strangers, passing in the halls. King Udoka and Queen Chika noticed that the union was not producing the happiness or heir they had hoped for. After 2 years, there was still no child. The king summoned Onoce and Eurima to the throne room one day and scolded them both. "You are husband and wife. The kingdom expects an heir," King Udoka said sternly, looking pointedly at Onoce. Onoce bowed his head. "Father, it will happen in time," he said, though he sounded unconvincing. Queen Chika gently tried to encourage Eurima. "My dear, perhaps spend more time together, just you two. Take a trip to the royal retreat, or the lake. Rekindle your bond." Eurima forced a tight smile. "Yes, your majesty. We will try." But nothing improved. Onoce's heart remained distant, and Eurima's heart was now wounded and closing off. As more time passed, whispers started among a few servants. Perhaps the prince was cursed to never be happy. Or maybe the gods disapproved of the marriage. The queen brought in a priest at one point to bless the couple's chamber, hoping to bring fertility and harmony. But still, no pregnancy and no joy resulted. Eurima's constant frustration wore her down. She felt humiliated, undesired, and miserable. In her loneliness, her eyes eventually fell on someone who did pay attention, a young guard in the palace named Obina. He was kind to her, offering a listening ear when he found her crying in the garden one afternoon. One forbidden comfort led to another, and Eurima, starved for affection, found solace in the guard's arms. It was a secret betrayal, one driven by despair and need rather than malice. For a time, Eurima felt a guilty kind of happiness, sneaking off to meet Obina in quiet corners of the palace grounds at night. He would whisper that she was beautiful, that she deserved love. In those stolen moments, she felt wanted. But secrets have a way of coming to light. About 3 years into the marriage, Princess Eurima realized she was with child. Her monthly courses had stopped, and the midwife confirmed her pregnancy. Fear and panic gripped Eurima. She knew at once the child could not be Prince Onoce. They had barely shared a bed at all, and certainly not in the time frame that could lead to this. For a short time, she tried to hide it, draping herself in loose robes. But soon, it became obvious as her belly began to swell. Servants whispered, then gossiped. King Udoka and Queen Chika were initially overjoyed to hear the princess might be pregnant, thinking their prayers for an heir were finally answered. However, Prince Onoce was perplexed when he heard the news. He confronted Eurima privately, his voice low and tinged with accusation. "They say you are expecting a child." Eurima stood by the window, hands cradling her belly unconsciously. She lifted her chin. "Yes," she replied. Onoce felt anger stirring. "How can that be?" he said. "You and I, we have hardly." He trailed off, unable to complete the thought that the child could be his. It was possible. There were a few occasions early on when he had tried to fulfill his duty, though without passion. But deep down, he knew the timing was wrong. He had kept to himself for many months now. Eurima turned, tears in her eyes. She was tired of lies. We both know how, Onoce. This baby is not yours. Onoce's face went pale. Even though he expected her words, the confirmation still struck him. Who? He asked in a strained voice. Who is the father? Eurima pressed her lips together, silent. She would not give up Obina's name. She knew he would be killed for it, but her silence was answer enough. Onoce raked a hand through his hair, trying to control his rising fury and humiliation. How could you? I know I failed you as a husband, but to betray our marriage vows with a guard under my own roof. Princess Eurima's sadness flared into anger. And what of your vows to me? You vowed to love and cherish me, yet you never even tried. I was alone, Onoce, wretchedly alone, and longing for a touch of kindness. I reached out to you over and over, and you pushed me away every time. What did you expect would happen to a heart so starved for love? Onoce clenched his fists. Part of him felt she was not entirely wrong. He had driven her to despair, but the betrayal still stung deeply.